I spent 8 years on the New Inventors, working with over 1,000 of the country's best innovators, trying to answer one question. How? How do they see opportunities the rest of us miss, solve problems the rest of us get stuck on? The good news is that they do things that we can all learn to do. There is a process for innovation that we can all learn, and I want to share a little bit of it with you this afternoon. The first thing innovators do better than the rest of us is that they think. Now, I don't mean they're super intelligent. I mean they spent a bit of each day thinking about how to do things better. Now, you might be thinking, what do you mean think? I spend all day thinking. That's why I'm so tired and crabby every evening. But do you? How much of your day do you spend thinking? How much of it do you spend reacting, coping, responding in meetings, on emails, on the phone? How often do you get to the end of the day and think, I didn't have a second to think? Everyone have those days? Innovators think. They realise that innovation isn't something we should do if we have time after we've finished the work. It is the work. And I'd suggest to you, if you're spending 100% of your time working out how to cope with today's problems and 0% of it working out how to get ready for tomorrow, you might be over-prioritising today at the expense of tomorrow. Now, I'm not saying 50-50, but what about 98-2? 2% of your time, about 10 minutes a day, thinking about how to do things better. Okay, so what do you think about? Where are there opportunities for innovation? Turn that question around. Where aren't there? Where isn't there an opportunity for innovation? I guess the answer is where you're doing something perfectly, where you can't imagine it being done better, when you're confident that it'll be done the same way in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years. When you find something like that, don't waste any time thinking about how to make it better. But I would suggest to you very few things are like that. Think about how different what you do is today from what it was 10 or 15 years ago. And remember, as I said earlier, innovation isn't just technology. It's not just big step changes. It's tiny incremental improvements. It's not just about the way you serve patients, but about every aspect of what you do, your processes, your systems, even your management style. The biggest barrier to innovation isn't technical, it's not getting enough money from the minister, it's not technological, it's psychological. Habitual thinking. That's when we go to the same place every day and do variations on the same tasks, and when a problem happens we know how to solve it because we've solved it before. And if we do that for too long, it's very easy to get habituated and to stop seeing opportunities for change, just to get into that mentality where you think, well, we do things this way because that's the way we do them. The status quo, if you like, over-prioritises itself. What I want to share with you is a few ways to break out of that habitual thinking, see what you do with fresh eyes, and perhaps come up with opportunities to do things even better. And the first one is to question everything. Let me give you an example. That was a teaser. In Pittsburgh, a 15-year-old schoolboy was given, called Severe Merchandani, was given this task by his teacher. The teacher said, think of a way to save the school money. He thought about all the ink they used. He went home, he typed 300 words on a document on his computer, copied it to 3 other documents. Then he changed the font of each one, printed them out and weighed them. You with me? So he had 4 identical documents, identical words. The only difference is the font. The pieces of paper weighed the same. Any difference in the weight must therefore be due to the differing amount of ink the different fonts used. Have a look at the bottom one, Garamond. See how the letters are a bit thinner? He found that if his school changed all their printing to Garamond, they'd reduce their ink bills by 24%. If all the schools in his district did it, they would save $21,000 a year. If the US government printed everything he found on Garamond, they'd save $270 million a year. Isn't it a great example of questioning everything? Fonts are literally right in front of our eyes every day, and that's a correct use of the word literally. You know how people use it incorrectly all the time? Oh, I literally exploded. No, you didn't. Question everything that you do. Maybe you do 86 things a week. Ask about each one. Is it possible there might be a better way? 84 times you might answer no, but 1 or 2 times you might find an opportunity to do things better. We all make it can also be a psychological exercise. So a bicycle company was getting a lot of their bikes damaged in transit. They questioned everything about their problems. They sold their bikes online, then shipped them around the world. And they looked at it technologically. They thought, how can we pack the bikes better? But they also looked at it psychologically, and they said, what can we do to encourage baggage handlers and couriers to treat our parcels with more care? This is what they did. They didn't say there was a TV in there. Merely putting the picture on changed the behaviour of everyone handling their parcels so that damage is reduced by 75%. 75%. What can you do if you want patients or staff to behave in a particular way? You can tell them, but what can you do that makes them want to behave in that way? Consider the assumptions you're making. Someone said earlier that we often assume that we have to provide the solutions to patients, whereas perhaps another model is involving patients in the solutions. What assumptions are you making about how your organisation works, about how patients need to be cared for, about the best way to implement that care? Try and identify the assumptions you're making and ask, are they really valid in October of 2017? Will they be valid in January of 2018? We've heard a bit about data, haven't we? Let me give you an example of how data can be used in a fairly simple way to help allocate resources better. A zoo in the United States, they knew there was a relationship between the weather and attendance. Everyone knew that, right? Rainy day, less people. They want to know more about the relationship. So they ran all their historical attendance data versus all the weather data, took into account weekends, school holidays, public holidays. They came up basically with a formula with a margin for error that would tell them, according to the time of year, if the weather's going to be like that, their attendance will be between X and Y. It was an incredibly valuable exercise for them because it meant every Monday they could roster all week. They could say on Wednesday, it's going to rain all day. We only need 40 staff. On Thursday, it's going to be beautiful weather. We know we'll get more people. We'll roster 100 staff. On Friday, it'll rain in the morning, be fine in the afternoon. We'll put 40 on till lunchtime, have another 60 come on in the afternoon. There must be relationships that you are at least anecdotally aware of. Find out more about them. For example, people might come into an emergency shift on a wet Friday in December and go, boy, it's going to be busy tonight, because it always is on a wet Friday in December. If you know that, find out more about the relationship and solve the problem before it arises by rostering accordingly, if your data will tell you when it's going to be busy. This is probably the most important one. Think like a customer, or in your case, think like a patient. Interact with your organisation as a patient. I know someone who works in a bookstore. Every week he goes into his own store as a customer, not as the owner, goes shopping in his own store. He says he always finds, by doing that, some little way he can improve the layout of his store because he's there as a customer. Be brave enough to ask your patients what you can do better. My dad was recently in a hospital in Canberra, not in New South Wales, and I went and saw him, and he, within the first 5 minutes, told me everything that was great, everything that was bad, everything where they could do better. No one ever asked him, though. Make it part of your discharge process. Make whoever's discharging the person say, what did we do well, and please, can you give us some advice about how we can improve? If they've been there for a week, they're going to want to share. It's incredibly valuable to have someone point out the problems to you, because then you can fix them. Interact with your business as a customer. What else do your customers want? My daughter Lily had a great 9 years old, great experience on Tuesday. She went into hospital for a minor procedure. I won't tell you what it is, but let me tell you, she's not going to be eating wheat ever again. You can probably guess. They treated her not as someone who was going to have a celiac test, but as a little girl. And as she was going under for the anaesthetic, the anaesthetist showed her a Horrid Henry video on his phone. Well-intentioned, she hates Horrid Henry, but how is he know that? But my point is, they treated her as a person. They ask, what else can we do rather than just treat her as a disease? Keep asking that. And finally, this is a really good question to ask. What do you want your patients to do? How can you get them to do it? Let me give you an example from the world of sports shoes. A sports shoe company in America, they asked this question: what do we want our customers to do? How can we get them to do it? Someone said, wouldn't it be great if whenever they're in a competitor's store, we can get them to run out and run to one of our stores? This is what they did. A lot of their customers had their app. You know, they were young people. They put a geolocation device in the app that you could opt in or opt out of, but no one did. Whenever the app detected they were in a competitor's store, their phone buzzed and 100 came up on the screen. 99, 98. If they got from the competitor's store to their store, by the time the countdown got down to 28, they get a 28% discount. If they ran faster and got there by when it said 43, they get a 43% discount. So people were literally going into competitors' stores, pulling out their phone, then sprinting out. Can you imagine how demoralising that would be? But it's a great exercise. What do we want our staff to do? How can we get them to do it? What do we want our patients to do? How can we get them to do it? Don't expect, if you want to be innovative, brilliant ideas to leap into your head the first instant you try and think of them. It's hard. It's supposed to be hard. If you feel bored, frustrated and stupid, that means you're doing it right. Persist and you'll come up with something. Don't think, I'm just not that sort of person. That sort of person doesn't exist. We can all do it. Let me now, in 3.5 minutes, tell you something about creating an innovative organisation, embedding a culture of innovation. Get people to think, value their ideas, and then use them. How do you get people to think? Make it clear it's part of the job. Tell people your job is to do this, and to think of ways of doing all those things and anything else better. Make it a KPI, sticks and carrots. Little bit of carrot, little bit of stick. One of your KPIs is to come up with 6 new ideas a year. Don't have to be great ideas, don't have to be huge, but they do have to be something, and you do have to share them. If you get people to get in the habit of thinking it's part of their job, then they'll do it, and they'll probably quite enjoy it because it's exciting stuff. If you think it's important, act like it's important. Remind people to be innovative. Put up signs, send an email out on random days saying, have you spent 10 minutes today thinking about how we can do things better? Treat people's ideas as valuable, as important. So rather than an anonymous email address, get people to pitch ideas to a person. Half an hour a week, any manager can say, Tuesday, 2:30 to 3, I'm in my office. Every week it's an appointment. That's the time when you can pitch me ideas. Doesn't have to be time consuming. Should be able to pitch any idea in 2 minutes. Say what the problem is, say what your solution is, say what you want to happen next. Say what the problem is, say what the solution is, say what you want to happen next. Pitch ideas for a person, and if someone pitches you a terrible idea, thank them for going to the effort of having it, for having the courage to share it. That way they'll come back with a better idea. Don't expect all ideas to be great, but if you get a lot of ideas, you'll find some fantastic ones. And then use them. This is the hardest bit because it takes resources, but it's really important. There's no point telling everyone that you want an innovative culture if you don't have a clear, credible and transparent system to take their ideas, find the best ones, test and trial them, and then implement the ones that are going to make your organisation better. So be accountable for what you do with people ideas. Design a system. It's not that hard. You just need to put responsibilities in, timelines, what the test is. Okay, you get pitched 10 ideas a month. You pick the best 3. You then have a week and these resources to take them to the next step. You then have to report back and we work out whether to go any further with it. So, get people to think, value their ideas, and then do something with them. And before you know it, you've got a system. Everyone realises it's part of their job. You've got a flow of ideas coming up the pipeline. You don't have to design the system anew every time someone has an idea because you know what it is and you know how it works. I've written a book that expands on these ideas. Feel a bit uncomfortable plugging it, but not so uncomfortable I didn't, clearly. Last thing I'll say is this. A lot of people ask me how people on the New Inventors went, and financially, some made money, some lost. But I never met anyone who regretted the process. And I think that I've tried to argue in this short time that innovation is good for your business, for your organisation, but it's also good for you. It's exciting, it's an adventure, it's a great enlivening thing, having an idea that started in your mind, taking it out into the world and seeing how big it can get. And I invite you all to have that adventure. Thank you.